Hello everybody, just a little bit of noise there to make sure you're all still awake. Hello, so my name is Janet and I work for Turning Point. Turning Point is a drug and alcohol agency and we help young people and adults who are having problems with their drug or their alcohol use, or both. One of the questions that we always like to ask young people is, how do you know if you've got a problem with drugs and alcohol? It's not easy to know, and sometimes the person using can be the last person to know. So for some people, it's because they might be spending all their money on drugs, they might be stealing, they might be committing a crime to pay for drugs or alcohol. It can also make you feel unwell, both physically and mentally, and more often than not it will cause arguments. It will cause arguments at home, it might cause arguments amongst you and your friends as well. And you might even be having problems at school. So if you're truanting to use drugs, or you know that your teachers are having to talk to you about some of your behaviours, that might be an indication. And also finally, you might be getting in trouble with the police. So they're just some of the signs that might tell you that you've got a problem with drugs or alcohol. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through a quiz with you. So there'll be some examples of A, B, C. You can perhaps think of true or false. So I'll read out the question. I'll give you a moment to think about the answer and then I'll give you the answer. Okay, so let's go then. Number one, alcohol is a stimulant drug. So a stimulant drug is a drug that speeds up the way the body works. So it speeds up your central nervous system, the heart rate and your pulse. So the question is, alcohol is a stimulant drug. Is that true or is that false? So the answer is false. So alcohol is a depressant drug. So what we know is when somebody drinks alcohol, it slows everything down. So if you think about somebody who has drunk too much alcohol, is their speech fast or slow? It's slow. Are their reaction times fast or are they slow? They're slow. So if your reactions and your behaviours are slower and the way you speak is slower, that's a good indication that the drug is actually a depressant drug. So when people drink too much alcohol, especially in one go, they are at risk of alcohol poisoning, and for some people even death, because actually if it slows everything down, then it's slowing down your heart, and if you drink so much that you do that, then yeah, that's a problem. Number two, drinking too much alcohol can lead to A, taking risks that you wouldn't normally take, B, unconsciousness or death, C, being sick, D, being taken advantage of sexually, E, accidents, or F, all of these. And the answer is, of course, F. So lots of people in this country drink alcohol, and you guys, you probably all will as well. But when people drink too much alcohol, what they start to do is their common sense goes out of the window a little bit. So things that you probably wouldn't normally choose to do when you're sober, you may well do when you've had too much to drink. Okay, so it increases the risks of things happening. So yeah, taking risks you wouldn't normally, unconsciousness or death if you drink too much in one go. Lots of people are sick on drinking alcohol, being taken advantage of sexually, and accidents. So they're just some of the risks that can happen when you drink too much alcohol. At Turning Point, we don't actually say to people, don't drink alcohol. So when you do start drinking, it's about making sure that you only have a little bit. It's about making sure maybe you have your first drink or two when you're at a family gathering, so you're around people who keep you safe, people that will look out for you in case you have any problems with it. Okay, so number three, how many chemicals does tobacco have in it? Is it A, 1,000, B, 2,500, or C, 4,000? The answer is C, 4,000. And there's around about 50 of those chemicals are what we call toxic. So Toxic means poisonous, so there are poisons in tobacco. It doesn't mean that if you smoke it you're going to actually just drop down dead, because that won't happen. So what we do know is it builds up over time. So that's why after 20, 30 years of smoking, people are much higher risk of types of cancer and so on. Some of the chemicals that are poisonous are things like arsenic. There's something in there called acetone, which is what you find in nail varnish remover. What else is there? Carbon monoxide, for example, and there's one called formaldehyde, which is actually what they put in dead bodies to preserve them. Ugh. Not so good, that one. Number 4, tobacco is physically addictive. A for yes, B for no. And the answer's A. So some drugs are mentally addictive, so they're psychologically addictive, which means you'll have psychological cravings and you think you can't do without the actual drug. Physical addiction is different. It means your body physically craves. So you can get psychological, mental cravings, but you can also get physical cravings, which means when you stop smoking, if you were to just stop suddenly, then that means you would have some physical symptoms. I suppose really the best thing to do is don't start. So if you don't start, then you don't have to go through the pain of stopping. But that's easier said than done for some people. Okay, number 5. If you're out and about and you find a needle and syringe just lying around, the best thing to do is what? A, nothing. B, pick it up. C, kick it into the bush. D, tell an adult or phone the police on 101. So the answer is D. Absolutely, tell an adult. Do not pick it up, because there might be a virus on the needle. If you pick it up and accidentally get what we call a needle stick injury, that virus could then get into you. If that ever happens, or you're worried about it's happened, you must tell an adult. Okay, so the school would obviously tell parents, or if you're out of school, then parents would take you over to A&E to get you checked out. It's really important that if you do see any needles lying around, that you don't just leave it, because I'm sure some of you have got younger brothers and sisters. They might come along, they might pick it up, and actually they might not even tell anybody that they've actually had a needle stick injury, which means the virus would be growing inside of them. Okay, so if you do find anything like that lying around, tell a trusted adult, any adult, a shopkeeper, parents, teachers if it's near the school. Okay, so always make sure that we tell somebody. Number 6, you are worried about somebody else's drug or alcohol use. What do you do? A, tell a teacher or a trusted adult. B, nothing. So the answer for that one is A. You don't have to be worried about somebody else's drug or alcohol use on your own. It's absolutely okay for you to tell a teacher, to tell a parent, to tell a friend's parent, their mum or dad. By doing nothing can cause you lots of worry, and it might cause you stress, and it's hard to know what to do when you're a young person. So our advice is, if you're worried about somebody else's drug or alcohol use, talk to somebody that you trust. Let somebody know that you're worried. Number 7, how do you deal with someone offering you drugs? Do you A, take them? You don't want to feel silly saying no. B, be confident and say, no thanks, I'm not interested in doing drugs. So the answer's B. What we know is it's really hard being a young person, and actually we all want to fit in, and we don't want anybody to laugh at us. We don't want anybody to not want us to be our friends if we don't try stuff. So we do understand that, but what we do encourage you is to dig deep, and if you don't want to take drugs, then it's about letting them know that you don't want to. So you don't have to give an excuse, you don't have to say why. It's absolutely okay to say thanks but no thanks. Okay, so your decision and your choice counts. So if you've decided, do you know what, I don't want that drink of alcohol, or do you know what, I don't want those drugs, it's okay for you to say, no thanks mate, not interested. And number 8, Medicines and prescribed tablets are okay to take because, of course, the doctors prescribe them. Is the answer to that A, yes, B, no, or C, maybe? So the answer to that is no. Yes, doctors and hospitals can prescribe drugs for people, but those drugs are specifically for those people. Okay, so your body is different to theirs. They might have certain medication, certain conditions that you don't have. Sometimes when people are out and about, again, they might say, "Oh, try one of these pills." Oh, do you want one of these pills? And actually, you don't know what they are. We wouldn't know what they are either, to be fair. So it's about remembering that medicines, lots of people have them in their households, but it's about remembering, again, that if they're not prescribed for you, don't take them. And just to let you know that some of those medicines can cause overdose and death. So if your body isn't used to taking the medicine that the doctor prescribes, and then you take it, because your body's not used to it, you can actually overdose. So we call that tolerance. So if you don't use something, or maybe you don't drink alcohol, your body's not used to it, so you have no tolerance. Okay, but just remember that most medications from the doctor are harmful. Okay, the vast majority of them, and in fact some of the ones that you can buy in the shops. So for example, what are you guys thinking? Paracetamol, that's most one people say. That tells you to take 2 tablets every 4 hours if you're over the age of 12. So that's what you would do. So it's the liver in your body that processes that any drugs, alcohol, prescribed tablets. If you take more than you are instructed on the box to take, all you're doing is overloading your liver, and that can be quite dangerous. Especially if somebody takes more tablets than is said on the box. Okay, so it's a big no to taking any medicines. Okay, so one of the drugs that we find most young people come into service for is cannabis. So the majority of people that come in to see us to get help, they are cannabis users. So just to say a few words on cannabis. Is cannabis harmless? A, yes, B, no. So the answer to that, of course, is B, no, it's not harmless. So any drug can be harmful, and what we find with the people that come in to see us for help is that cannabis is the one drug that really plays on their mental health. By that I mean it can cause anxiety in some people, it can cause paranoia, and obviously the more people you use cannabis for the longer period of time, and also for if they're using it every day, then obviously those symptoms can become worse, and then it's really, really hard for people to stop. It's really hard to cut down and really hard to stop. So cannabis is harmful. Okay, so that's all I want to say today on the quiz. And one of the things that I wanted to also share with you is, as you all grow up, you are very likely to be offered alcohol and drugs. There's a high likelihood that you might even choose to use alcohol or drugs. Remember, with alcohol, it's about using too much, okay? In our society, we do drink alcohol, but actually the problems and the risks come about when you drink too much. So one of the things that we want you to remember from Turning Point is you don't have to use all drugs and alcohol if you don't want to. Never use anything too much or too often. Get a good education on the risks and the effects. Now, the reason we tell you to do that is it helps you make what we call an informed choice. So you know all the facts before, if you ever decide to try any drugs. And also, just to end, if you're worried about anything to do with drugs or alcohol, as I said earlier, always speak to a trusted adult. If you're worried about somebody else's drug or alcohol use, speak to another family member, speak to a friend's parent, or importantly, speak to a teacher. Okay, so it's been lovely seeing you, sort of. I hope you all have a really good time going around in Crucial Crew, and I hope this has been helpful for you today. And hopefully next year I'll get to see everybody as they come round and we see them face to face. So any problems from today, if anyone wants to talk about anything that I've talked about today, then go and speak to your favourite teacher. Okay, thank you. Enjoy your day. Bye now.